There once was a reality where an emperor was kept alive, saved and brought into his immortal form, kept alive no matter the cost. But what if there was another? A world where that did not occur, where people were griffins, did not have the capabilities to keep him alive, where his old age, well, got to him in the end, despite it all. That is the reality we are now in. A reality where he is not able to live, where he does not survive, where, despite being middle-aged, his diseases, his age that he's grown to, is too much for him, and he falls dead, no matter what anyone else were to say. No one truly, people expected it, but no one thought it would happen. People thought he'd make it longer, but he did not. So we move from that reality to this one. From reality where he does great things and rules the world under an iron fist, to a world where he is dead. And that is simply all he is. But the Emperor is dead. Unfortunately, after nearly a month of treatments and therapy, ranging from the latest scientific medicine to holy anointments of priests, zebra potions, and other exotic magical mystery cures, Emperor Grover V of his name was embraced by the claws of Boros at the age of 47. His caretaker said his last words were, "Boris, did I do good?" His unstable and controversial reign has finally come to an end, and all of Herzland is in mourning, with black flags hoisted from the Rotterdam to Strasbourg and from Yale to Sulfur. His funeral processions in Griffenheim was attended by hundreds of thousands of griffins. His closest friend, Gabriella Eagleclaw, was the only vassal who arrived in time to participate, and was seen wearing a beautiful yet mournful black gown. Archon Ares held a fiery sermon, where he declared that an age had come to an end, but calmed down and almost broke into tears. 5 minutes of silence were observed in the city as Grover was laid to rest in the Grand Temple of Boris. Some would say that Grover was a pathetic ruler. Others would call him kind. Many citizens secretly despised him, yet a few pitied him instead. His father, Grover, had intended to personally groom his heir and make him a mighty warrior, cunning diplomat, and expert statesman, but died unexpectedly of a stroke when his only child was only 10 years old. So Grover would become a neglected puppet, while his nobles ruled over the empire as they pleased, securing more and more wealth and privileges. The young and sickly emperor was denied his throne when he turned 18, and lacked the willpower to demand it, but it later turned out he did not need to do so. The revolution of 978 brought a bloody end to the Regency, and the emperor only survived thanks to Archon Ares' efforts. A counter-revolution led by Duchess Gabriella gave him his rightful powers, but at that point he ruled over a tiny remnant of the once vast empire, surrounded by vassals who demanded autonomy in return for their contributions to the counter-revolution. The emperor spent the following tumultuous years trying to learn how to rule, which meant that many of his well-intended projects failed miserably. His last gift to his people, and possibly his only accomplishment in life, was the brand new imperial railway system that connected much of Herzland. He could be called incompetent, or simply most unfortunate. Now history repeats itself, due to his only son and heir, Prince Grover, not being of the age in which he is capable of ruling a country himself. A regent council consisting of nobles, merchants, princes, and temple officials shall take over the apparatus of state until a more suitable solution is found. We can only pray it doesn't end like the previous regency. Boros save us all. Emperor Grover, sixth of his name, has so far shared the fate of his father. An orphan too young to rule, a regency has been established to govern in his stead, leaving the young Griffin as a powerless figurehead. However, unlike with Grover, the regents aren't selfish and corrupt fools. Not only that, but Grover is not sickly or weak, and has a sharp and curious mind, as well as a natural talent for leadership. He has a great potential, but only time will tell if it will be fulfilled, should his regent allow it. His Majesty Grover shall be crowned in Griffinstone upon his 18th birthday in 1021. And we could either go with the Council of Three or the Old Guard. Completely have very different paths for a while, and I think we are going to be going with the Old Guard. The Archons would have you believe that the aristocrats are little more than drunken wretches, burning their money away on festivals filled with debauchery. Although we cannot speak for all of us, there is still a sizable hard-working majority who wish to see the Empire's glory properly restored, to restore our traditions and honor. So shall it be. The Emperor is dead. After a long 40-year reign, the Griffonian Emperor, Grover, has passed away in the Imperial Palace. Once a brief period of utter chaos in the capital ended, a proper Regency Council was established to guide and care for Prince Grover VI and protect the Empire. A grand funeral procession was organized for the late Emperor in the capital, and a ceremony was held conferring the Prince Grover V's, this is the sixth, that's the fifth, succession to the throne. Time will tell if this regency will end like the last one, in revolution and bloodshed. The Empire mourns. Also, if you want to see the beginning, like me read all the generals' descriptions and read the starting description and read all the events coming up to this point, it is in the playthrough of me playing as the Secret Nation, the April Fool's Nation that they did. So the first 1.5 episodes is just me reading through stuff like that. So if you want to know, go read there. Bronze Hill sends a gift. In the wake of the Emperor's death, our vassals in Bronze Hill have presented us with a truly beautiful gift. It is part of Diamond Dog culture that in the event of a death, the dogs close to deceased will gather gemstones known as flower gems and sculpt them with a memorial. These dogs have remembered their loyalty to the crown well and have submitted their gifts, crafting a truly impressive statue of Grover the Fifth, constructed out of precious gems gathered by hundreds of thousands of country citizens. Many have called for us to place this statue in the Imperial Mausoleum as a sign of our gratitude for this cherished gift. While it would no doubt be a glorious addition to the Emperor's tomb, it cannot be ignored that this statue would fetch a rather high price amongst art collectors, with the money helping to stabilize our budget. Send our thanks to Bronze Hill. It's a shame it never arrived. We could really use a little economic buff. Though honestly, it probably wouldn't even send me over an amount that matters. You know what? Let's just thank them. Let's just be gracious for their support. It's good to be gracious. My starting research, as literally always. I am gonna do some tanks this run. The Duchess takes the stand. Poor Grover. He was too young, too fragile for this cruel world. With change comes an opportunity. These were Duchess Gabriella's thoughts as she walked down the venerable halls of the Imperial Palace. As much as she personally considered the late Emperor her friend, she knew that he was no proper ruler. The conniving nobles have abused Grover for too long, and she was ashamed to share the same room with them. But that could be dealt with later on. She had a grand vision for the Empire, one that would make Boros proud of Griffins again. and more importantly, give the young heir a proper territory to rule once he is old enough. But first, she must deal with Eros and his thugs. Religious officials are such a nuisance. With that, she stepped into the council's chambers. The Archon was already there, giving his sermon to the gathered nobles. What a bother. She took a seat next to the Count of Bronzehill, tuning out the speech, and discussed the situation in a hushed whisper. Gabriella ignored Eros' grandstandings until he finally decided to remove his old hide from the central podium. With that, she took her chance, strolled down to the center, and addressed the room. My fellow nobles and other griffins worthy of respect, the esteemed Archon speaks well of the situation. We must have stability, and we must reassure our authority. But how can we trust the Archon to provide for our nation? She ignored the scowls Eros and his lackeys were sending her way. They talk of war, but do they care for the little griffin? How can we get anywhere before we modernize our beloved Hertzland, before we help our people? I implore you all to consider the right choice. Cheers and applause followed, with a loud minority of jeers and claw-pointing. It didn't matter. The council will back her claim for regencies, and Eris will be marginalized, consigned to the altar where he belongs, for the Empire and its noble peers. Woo! Die, Clash Swabber Young. I can't read that. The Empire is more unstable now than ever before. The Emperor's death has raised even greater concerns for us, specifically in the army. Many officers have become disloyal and treacherous, something that we cannot accept and tolerate if the Empire is to survive. We must purge all disloyal personnel at once, no matter the price. No matter the price. They're having their civil war. Have fun. Have fun with your civil war, guys. I hope it goes well for you. Heart, heart, kiss, kiss. The Barrack revolt. Ferdinand Dawnclaw sat in his office, located in one of the innumerable military bases that dotted the capital of the Griffonian Empire. Ferdinand considered himself a patriot. In a sense, that was true. He did love the Empire in his own strange way, and it was precisely because of that love that he had to rebel. In his mind, the Empire simply couldn't survive without a radical change in the status quo. Could an already weakened Empire survive with a mere child in charge, with the nobles circling around him like vultures? No, something had to be done. Ferdinand knew that his chances of success were slim, and that he would most likely just go down in history as another nameless traitor to the Empire, a fool whose futile rebellion was quickly crushed. Reports started to trickle in. His forces were converging on the Imperial Palace, and soon they would face the palace guards in direct combat. Ferdinand could do nothing but wait, and hope that his soldiers could match the ferocity of the hardened defenders that they now faced. The next few minutes would decide the fate of the entire empire, by extension the course of history itself. Oh, they're about to... Oh my goodness, they're gonna... So sorry. I totally thought you were gonna win there. Man, I really thought you were gonna win. Man. A traitor's death. Ferdinand Dawnclaw, one of the Empire's most recent traitors, was publicly executed in the capital today, with the events drawing little attention from the rest of the Empire. Ever since attempting a failed coup several days ago, the Griffin had simply awaited his fate. Once the time finally came to lay judgment down on him, no leniency was taken, and he was found guilty of high treason, as well as conspiracy to commit regicide. There was only one punishment worthy of such evils, and he was sentenced to be hung from the gallows at dawn. The Griffin offered no defense for himself, staying silent throughout the entire court case, seemingly having accepted his fate. The exhaustion itself was my cat. subdued event, with a scant few military officials and curious onlookers showing up. Of the few Griffins present at the event, Elias Bronzetail was the most senior in rank, showing up out of the little respect that he had for the foolish general. There were no grad speeches or denunciations at the execution. Ferdinand was simply led up to the gallows, and minutes later he was hung, dead in the air. In the end, Ferdinand Downclaw died a mundane death, one which was observed by few. He would be footnote in history, another mad general driven by lust for power, an insignificant traitor whose pitiful rebellion was put down before it could even start in earnest. It was a fitting end. Political power, stability, and remove him from the empire. Good. Glad to have him gotten rid of. Oh, I did take him before the bad event that got rid of all my political power, because getting that's really useful here, because it actually lets you gain more political power when you're gaining like none for a long while. I used to take partial mode, but this is actually the first station I've played. Now, I haven't really read the lore. The last time I played this nation was a long time ago, back when I used to not really read the lore nearly as much. But this is the first nation that I've actually played before. When instead, like all the other nations, I had saved playing them, or at least playing that path, for our video. This Griffonian Empire, I've played every single path at this point. A letter from Skyfall. A note arrived in Griffonheim today, one pinned by Chancellor Gutschard of Skyfall and addressed to the young Grover personally. The officials were puzzled. The Chancellor was known for his lack of diplomacy towards the Empire, and especially with petty cruelty towards the Imperial dynasty, and so the letter was opened and reviewed by the officials under orders from the Regency to make sure it wouldn't hurt the young Emperor. The panel decided it was safe for him to read. Grover VI's personal tutor was tasked to bring him the letter and read it to him. The young Emperor quizzed without hesitation, knowing little at his age of the old Chancellor's deeds. Gutschard, through his letter, offered the fledgling his condolences and went to describe what he did against his father and why. The tone was apologetic, if a bit self-serving and gentle. Finally, the old Griff apologized for all his deeds and told Grover that he hoped that maybe someday there would be a detente between Skyfall and the Empire, and that maybe, just maybe, the young Emperor could live through less brutal times. The young Grover didn't quite understand the word detente, but his eyes were watery by the end of the letter. The tutor asked him if he wanted to reply to the message. Grover told him to simply write back, "Thank you." The next week, the Foreign Affairs Minister received news from Gutschard was sending donations to imperial charities in the name of the late Emperor. At last he seems to have found decency in him. Calm voice of reason. Grand Duke Gabriella IV of Frisia is respected by all. Regardless of their standing or place in life, he is set to appear in Griffenheim soon to deliver a speech on the issue of Regency. His support could do wonders for our cause, and Gabriella knows she needs only a small push to convince him. Alright, grab up you. Gerlach support. Time is of the essence, thought Duchess Gabriella. Her little speech gathered support for her cause, but it was still inconclusive whom will the council elect for Regency. The next matter to be discussed was the admittance of the common-born griffins of some repute to the council, and that simply cannot be allowed. Eros blatant populism would spell doom for the Empire if the actual commoners found out about it, and no griff needs another 978. Fortunately, the opportunity presented itself. The Grand Duke of Featherista arrived in Griffenheim today. His coming unnoticed by most, as he was fond of traveling incognito. He was set to deliver his speech in the council chambers tomorrow, and while he is a pure-blooded noble, Gabriella suspected that the Archon's lackeys could persuade him to support an inferior cause. He can be irritatingly pragmatic sometimes, but the Duchess had her own plan in mind. She will invite him to dine at Griffenheim estate and take advantage of his fondness for her in order to secure an alliance. Thus the evening came, the two noble griffins seated in front of each other. Sorry about that. I am back. That was just out for a moment. Where am I? She invited him. Honest for her. Thus the evening came. The two noble griffins seated in front of each other as the duchy's opulent dining room. Pleasant chatter was exchanged over a traditional feathersome feast, with dishes such as snert and meat shashing. Thankfully, he refrained from devouring the fish in a primitive way. It was certainly unbecoming to be seen doing such. As Gabriella was about to make a comment on the latest gossip, she was suddenly interrupted by the normally tight-beaked Grand Duke. Lady Eagleclaw, I do not wish to disrespect your hospitality, but I am keenly aware of your invitation's purpose. This came as no surprise to her, as she made a strong effort to flatter his sensibilities. In fact, he gave her an opening to cut straight to the matter of Claw. Forgive me, Grand Duke, but I believe it is within our mutual interest to stand together against the Archons and their wicked schemes. They cannot be trusted to rule our legacy. As Gerlich silently considered his options, she pressed further. Think, what would Grover want? This got his attention, his eyes gleaming at the memory of the late Emperor. So it is, Duchess, so it is. Tomorrow at the Council's meeting, Gabriella could only smugly listen to Gerlach's speech, lambasting the Archons for their irresponsible actions. This will certainly draw some of the indecisive nobles to vote for regencies. As his speech drew to a close, she thought about setting up another dinner. The Grand Duke is certainly easy on the eyes. Your devotion will not be forgotten, Gerlach. Woo! A dagger in the dark. When words fail, we turn to subterfuge and deceit. Archon Ares holds least popularity within the common folk and the Regency councils, a fact we can exploit by calling upon some old friends within Ramau to spread our words of choice. Oh boy. This'll be fun. Fun. It's fun! Of things that never happened. An interesting book was published today, Of Things That Never Happened, by Barry's Sorrel Tale. It follows the life of a character simply known as Ropshin, a Republican terrorist who had been ordered by his superiors to assassinate the Wingbardian king, Gilberto. His attempt fails, however, which changes the course of history. The Empire never falls apart, and the Revolution of 978 never takes place. As Griffonia prospers, Ropshin begins to question its Republican values and eventually becomes a loyal supporter of the Empire. While the premise of the story is rather simple, the writer focuses more on the character of Ropshin and his beliefs than the actual plot of the story. Some critics have even pointed out that at times it feels as if the character and the writer are the same person. Nevertheless, the book had been generally warmly received both by commoners and nobles alike. Ropshin, you say? Where have I heard that name before? You heard when it gave you 5 political power right now. Friends in Erate Ecarnate. Reputation can make or break a griffin. The Duchess knew this well. Many nobles were left disgraced once the attention of unflattering comments landed on them, regardless of whether there were any substance of truth in them. Sometimes a noble griff simply crossed the wrong pier. Such were the rules of the country's intrigue, and Gabriella was keenly aware of them, which was why she decided to use these same tactics against the Archons. Although Eros and Protus were unfortunately too beloved and incorruptible, the same could not be said about their weakest link, Arion. It was an open secret that he conducted himself in a manner considered shameful by even the priesthood of Ares' standards. Gabriella knew just how to exploit the situation. She was a friend of a local priest named Hephaestus, whose advancements she was snubbed by the Arion plenty of times. She was certain that he will be open to the suggestion of revenge in exchange for an open seat in the Arcanate, once the true order took control. With that, she began writing a letter, which would arrive tomorrow in Ramau. The following week saw plenty of controversy in Ramau and beyond, as multiple accusations emerged targeting various high-ranking religious officials. The common griffins were outraged to hear that their aims ended up funding extravagant parties, and worse yet, the tales of abuse committed by young initiates. While many of these stories had few facts behind them, and while Archon still had their claws full on trying to minimize the extent of the damage, the public opinion swung back in the nobles' favor. Everything was according to Gabriella's plan. And I don't care about your Equestria games or your Grand Galloping Gala. The various captains of industry, banking magnates, and other wealthy griffins are our natural allies. They might not have a noble title to their name, but they know what would occur should the Archon seize power for themselves. We shall court their support. And Colthage is having their normal fun. Lots of fun for them, just as normal. What else would you expect from them? The Imperial Industrialists. As Duchess Gabriella walked through the busy halls of Karstall, officers were on legacy. The Empire may last for centuries or not even a decade, but its cultural achievements will never be forgotten. But where the state comes and goes, its inhabitants are eternal, and more importantly, the money. The great wealth is concentrated within the many companies dotting the business districts of Griffenheim, and she knew that having their support could change it all. Thus, today she would dedicate her mourning to one known as Siron Greytalon, the most notable captain of industry in the city. He accepted her invitation for a meeting without hesitation, and before she knew it, she was sitting across the business magnate in his opulent office. "My dear Gabriella, what brings you to my humble workplace?" Siron started, with no hint of irony, chomping on his favorite golden griffin cigar, exclusive from Skyfall. I'll need that favor you promised me, Siron. I'll need your support and your colleagues' assistance against the Archons. You know we won't let them take over the state. Greytown leaned forward, exhausting a whiff of smoke. The Duchess didn't seem to be fazed by it. Your favors don't come cheap, Gabriella. What's in it for me? And for the Gastal. I must work for my bread like every other griffin, you know? The ever-predictable Charon and his greed. You'd think he had made enough in his lifetime, but some were never content. Tax breaks, subsidies, exclusive government contracts, and we won't nationalize your factories like the Archons would. They'd probably give it to all the peasants, too. Gabriella could practically hear the sound of idols clicking in the Charon's head. Her offer would clearly improve the next quarterly report. Then I believe that we have an outstanding deal, my dear. The Industrialists of the Empire will stand by your side. Claws were shaken. I don't know why I shook my own hand. You didn't see that. Pleasantries were exchanged, and a proposal of the expansion of a middling business was drawn up, primarily for the purpose of putting a good impression on the less fortunate, of course. The Duchess returned to her Griffenheim manor, and another piece of her plan put in motion. It wouldn't be long until she had everything she needed. Siron is a decent griffin once you get to know him. But I think that is a good time to go ahead and end this episode. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell button. And as always, peace.